Good evening everyone, it's M.S.G. I hope you're doing well, and welcome to my Soulforged Warpack Detachment review video. This was requested on a community post that I made around a week ago, if I recall correctly, where I posted, which detachment you guys would like to see next, and this is the one that won the vote. Again, I am going to probably review a majority of the detachments in Chaos Space Marines when I have free time to do so. But yeah, with that said, let's just get on into the video. So first of all, this is a brief synopsis. So the video is going to cover a brief description of the detachment rule itself, which is named Debt to the Soulforged, an overview of enhancements and stratagems, as well as combos, which will highlight which are highlights of the detachment, strengths and weaknesses, which might hamper overall efficacy, standout units, which work well within this detachment, including a few list ideas which I'd personally bring, an overall rating based on the information that I've shared, a culmination of it, and there will be a lot of slides and a lot of information here. As mentioned in the previous video with the creations of Bile, if you want to pause at any point during this just to write a list down or write a couple of notes down, you're more than welcome to do that. I'm more than happy for you to put this on in the background if you wish to just listen in. And for those keen of ear, I will mention that we do have some background music at the moment, which is Children of the Omnissiah. Obviously, those who are aware from the Mechanicus game, it's one of the coolest introduction musics, for lack of a better word. It's absolutely spectacular, so I figured I'd include it, given Mechanicus, Vashtor are very, very similar. But yeah, with that said, let's just crack on with the video. So first up is Soulforged Warpack, Debt to the Soulforged. Many are the demons who have forged pacts with the Vashtor the Arcaphane. Once bound into such a contract, a soul debt must be paid, one that the demon will strive endlessly and with all its desperation to fulfill. Each time a Heretic Astartes demon vehicle unit from your army makes a Dark Pact, it can invoke its contract. If it does, subtract 1 from the resulting leadership test when making that Dark Pact, and until the end of the phase, each time a model in that unit makes a ranged attack, add 1 to the wound roll. Or you can add 2 to the attacks characteristic of melee weapons equipped by models in that unit. So the trade-off is you can -1 to your leadership test for your Dark Pacts, but you obviously, higher risk, higher reward. This unfortunately doesn't benefit the infantry or DAM models we have access to, which is a bit of a pain. As I mentioned in previous videos, Chaos Space Marines usually live and die by their infantry. Chaos Lords, Dark Apostles, Legionaries, Chosen, even Possessed, all of them are staples in different detachments. So it is a shame that they don't benefit from it. But again, each individual detachment caters to a specific type of playstyle and or unit type, and this one caters to your vehicles. This is your vehicle detachment. So I think this is a very strong rule. Allows demon engines and vehicles to kill a lot more reliably, which is a thing which they do struggle with sometimes, but either way, having that extra +1 to wound from range is insanely good, and the extra 2 attacks does matter, especially due to the low quantity of attacks which most of our demon engines possess. On top of this, you'll also get your Dark Pact as well, so it's not exempt from that. You'll still get sustained hits and lethal hits, depending on which one you want. So obviously that implies a lot of damage. +1 to wound from range on top of sustained hits is fantastic, or even lethal hits if you're punching up. Getting +1 to wound is always nice, and the extra 2 attacks in melee is really good too. So unfortunately this doesn't benefit Vashtor because he's not a demon vehicle, and it's not necessarily a bad thing though, because there's a couple of reasons as to why, but I'll elucidate that later on in the video. Overall, I do think it's a very strong detachment rule which will prioritise sheer damage and killing power over any objective play and other shenanigans. So I'll provide my full ranking at the end of the video, but yeah, let's continue. So first of all, we're going to be talking about the enhancements. So the first one is the Forger's Blessing. Heretic Astartes model only. In your command phase, select 1 friendly Heretic Astartes vehicle within 12 inches of the bearer, and until the start of your next command phase, that unit has a Feel No Pain 6 up, which is, again, I've ranked it a 6 out of 10, so it's slightly above average. It is pretty pricey because it's 20 points, and obviously, on a chassis, depending on who you're bringing it on, it can just pushed that price up to a point where it's not attractive. However, I do think this is actually pretty good. And the reasoning for this is having access to a feel no pain, especially when you're throwing out that many mortal wounds and potentially taking more mortal wounds from dark packs, is really, really helpful. So the -1 to your leadership test from using the detachment rule will make it far more likely that you'll take mortal wounds on top of any damage you'll already be taking from your opponent. The 6-up feel no pain would be great on a warpsmith, as you'll want to be within middle demon vehicles anyway, and obviously it just doesn't specify that you have to be within line of sight. You can just be within 12 inches of the bearer. Second, obviously, one of those enhancements, what you'll want to... It's a bit of a complicated one. So, like I said, if you've got the points left over, take it. If not, you're not going to really miss anything. It's just a really good enhancement in terms of it's there if you need it, but not you have to include this in every list or you're going to lose the game. But again, it does say Heretic Astartes vehicles as well, which is what makes this a lot better. So it works on your Vindicators, Predators, Rhinos, and your Land Raiders. Like I said, it's not necessarily game breaking, but it's very nice to have a 6-up feel no pain on all those vehicles. So your bigger vehicles, such as your Lord of Skulls as well, your Land Raiders, anything like that, like your big, heavy vehicles, even your Vindicator could be put into that little group. But yeah, that 6-up feel no pain is going to take a surprising amount of damage off, which could potentially save your your unit, for lack of a better word. It's a good defensive buff. Next up is the second enhancement, which is Invigorated Mecha Tendrils. So Warpsmith only, add 4 inches to the bearer's movement characteristic. 15 points for this is trash. I think this is a horrendously bad enhancement. You don't actually need this under any circumstances. If you've got 15 points spare specifically, maybe. But at that point, you're probably going to be wanting to tune a couple of things down, potentially rewriting the list, because you do not want to bring this under any circumstances. This is really just not worth it. It's nice to have a 10-inch movement on your Warpsmith because, your demon engines on average will be moving between 8 to 12 inches, maybe a bit more. So your Warpsmith is going to want to have to advance all the time, which, again, who cares? You've not got really any ranged output on your Warpsmith. You're not bringing him for his ranged output. He's there. You can just advance, and you'll probably stay within, the necessary range of, certain combinations. Most of the time as well, if you're using a Warpsmith, you're going to be using it on your range damage dealers. So while you can run him up to melee threats, it also puts him at risk. Mainly due to the fact that the Warpsmith will get the lone operative rule if he's within 3 inches of a demon vehicle. So while you can run him up with your Mauler Fiends, as soon as your Mauler Fiends are within a decent threat range, you're probably going to get shot at. And this guy doesn't have an invul save. He only has a 2-up armor save, which is not great, and he only has 4 wounds. So yeah, ultimately, I would just never ever bring this. I don't think I would see any kind of situation where this would be useful. Again, if you've got 15 points specifically left and you just want to round it up to 2,000, maybe. But again, I would take another look at the list at that point. Speaking of from bad to even better, this is the best enhancement we have access to. This is the Tempting Addendum for 25 points. Heretic Astartes model only. Each time a Heretic Astartes demon vehicle from your unit from your army invokes its contract while within 3 inches of the bearer, it will suffer, in addition to the mortal wounds it has suffered from a Dark Pact, 1. So, for example, if you suffer 2, you now suffer 3. If you suffer 3, you now suffer 4. And until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit that makes an attack, you can re-roll the hit roll. So anytime a Heretic Astartes demon vehicle is within 3 inches of the bearer, you basically get 4 rerolls to hit at the cost of potentially taking more mortal wounds, which is, in my opinion, this is an auto-include. I think, like I've said here, I'll just read it off the slide. So you're bringing this on a Warpsmith, that's in the middle of your demon vehicle castle, so you want to keep all of your demon vehicles lumped together so they can get the benefit from this. Giving them full rerolls to hit is genuinely horrifying for your damage, as your damage is already obscenely high in this detachment, especially from range. This just pushes it to a different level and allows you to punch pretty much anything reliably and have a great chance of killing it. Warpsmiths will be giving 1 demon vehicle +1 to hit on top of that as well, which means you'll be hitting on 2s and getting 4 rerolls to hit, and getting your dart packs as well, so you can fish for the lethals or sustained hits if you want to do that. Again, Predators are going to like this, Forge Fiends are going to like this, Defilers, Lords of Skulls would probably like that, but again, having the melee rerolls is nice because, like I said, they have a low number of attacks, so if you miss one, your damage output is drastically reduced. So the only con is obviously, you're taking more damage if you do fail your dart pacts for your invoking your contracts. It happens, you're going to take mortal wounds at some point. It's very lore accurate, like I said here. Chaos tests you to see if you can handle more power, and if not, you will pay for it. Extra mortal wounds will add up over the game, so if you fail your leadership tests, on average you'll be taking between 2 to 4 mortal wounds, but you do have your Warpsmiths that will heal you to help dampen the impact of that, which is, again, it's nice to have. Another con as well is it's only 3-inch range, it should be, in my opinion, 6-inch. Because obviously, you don't really want to keep all your demon ninjas close together, mainly for practical reasons, because it's really easy to avoid them. But yeah, regardless of that, this is an auto include. Finally, we have Soul Harvester, so it's a Heretic Astartes model only. While the bearer is on the battlefield, each time an enemy unit within 12 inches of the bearer is destroyed, roll 1d6, and on a 5-up, you gain 1 command point. I've put this as a 6 out of 10. So any access to command point regeneration is always helpful to have. This detachment will require a decent amount of command points, as we have great stratagems which you're going to want to use. Potentially gaining 1 additional command point for killing units, which is what you're doing anyway, is massively important and flows well within the parameters of what your detachment actually wants to do. Only issue I have with it is that it should be on a 4-up instead of a 5-up, or make it an 18-inch or a 24-inch range with a 5-up. So, in my opinion, if you want to have it as a 4-up, then that's great. Keep it at 12 inches. Alternatively, make it 18-inch or 24-inch and keep it as a 5-up. Space Marines can have characters on the board that will automatically give them a command point for just literally existing. There's no reason as to why Chaos Space Marines have to jump through hoops in comparison. Again, I don't understand why Games Workshop just seem to be scared of giving Chaos Space Marines command point. What is it? Chapter Masters can just give you command points just for literally being on the board, which I think is ridiculous in my opinion, but anyway, having it be within 12 inches of an enemy unit which has been destroyed is also very risky. So obviously, like I mentioned previously, we're probably going to put this on some kind of Warpsmith, any kind of unit that you want to have supporting. Again, you can throw it in within the 12-inch bubble. Lone Operative's just not going to work. So obviously, you have the risk of potentially dying. It's just a bit weird. It's a very risky one. But again, if you run this guy up with a Forge Fiend and you shoot whatever you're shooting, you're probably going to kill it, so you will just get the command point, hopefully, fingers crossed. So first of the stratagems, it's Desperate Pledge, which is I've ranked as a 9 out of 10. It's excellent. So it's just basically shooting or fight phase, 1 Heretic Astartes demon vehicle, you get an extra AP when you're shooting or fighting, which is just, again, it's flat, it's fantastic, it's really good. Minus 4 AP on a Forge Fiend Ectoplasma Cannon means a majority of Space Marines will not be getting an armor save unless they use Armor of Contempt or have access to some form of cover. If you shoot in the Demolisher Cannon on the Vindicator or the last cannons on your Predator variants, that will then push them to minus 4 AP, which will usually hit through the armor of 3-up armor vehicles like a Rhino and their ilk. The extra AP on most of your melee attacks will have the same effect as well, so it's just the same thing. You hit harder and you penetrate armor a lot better. The only reason why it's not a 10 out of 10 is because it's not always going to be relevant. So most of the time, AP2 to AP3 is a big push, whereas AP3 to AP4 isn't, because a majority of the time your AP2 can be negated by cover. AP3, if it is negated by cover, will then be AP2, which means anything on a 2-up armor save is now going to a 4-up, and usually things with a 4-up usually will use their invulnerable save anyway. So if you threw in AP minus 3 into, I don't know, Chaos Lord, you're not really going to need that extra pip of AP because they're just going to go, right, I'm just going to use my, my invulnerable save. But again, this is still a very, very potent stratagem which you're going to be using when you can. Second is Unstoppable Rampage. This is an auto-include, in my opinion. This is the best stratagem. 10 out of 10. It's in your movement phase or your charge phase. One Heretic Astartes vehicle or Vashtor the Archithane unit from your army that hasn't been selected to move or charge. Until the end of the phase, each time your unit makes a normal advance or charge move, it can move horizontally through terrain features as if they were not there. So this covers a huge weakness in the detachment. So demon vehicles and vehicles in general suffer from being blocked in due to a lot of terrain placement, which means our opponent can place models in a terrain piece or behind one of them, which means we can't physically get to them or see them. So having access to this stratagem means we can completely ignore situations like that and get onto objectives and charge an enemy on them. So for example, if I see an enemy behind a wall, and I think, I can charge them and then slingshot onto the objective the next turn, I can use this stratagem, move straight through the terrain, get straight next to where I need to be, charge into them, probably kill them, and then use the consolidate move to essentially slingshot myself towards somewhere I actually want to go. The problem is we don't have that good contesting for objectives. So more often than not, you'll be killing a lot of stuff from range and then melee, so you can whittle an opponent down on an objective and then immediately charge him with a melee demon vehicle to kill them off and take the objective back. So the fact that we have access to this stratagem will force your opponent to play differently as well. So don't be that guy. Let your opponent know that you've got this for a command point. If they're aware of the fact that you can literally Kool-Aid man onto an objective for a command point, then your opponent will more than likely just avoid you doing that and try to mitigate that, and will play a lot more cautiously than they normally would. And final point for this, Vashtor can use it. So Vashtor is already a very potent threat, but the problem is he is a very big model, so he has a big base, which now it can, again, hamstring you a lot of the times, but this stratagem allows him to get into places where he shouldn't be getting into, or just basically just avoiding terrain, for lack of a better word, within 6 inches, which I think is absolutely spectacular. So not only is he quite quick, but he can just smash through something and then get onto an objective, which I think is primarily where you want to get this guy on, because if he's on the objective, he's probably going to kill whatever's on it. He can move through the terrain, shoot with his flamer, and then charge into a unit if he needs to. So more movement options equals more viability. Third is Glut of Souls. I've ranked this a 5 out of 10. Again, it's a very weird one. So it's the fight phase. So one Heretic Astartes demon vehicle unit from your army that has not been selected to fight until the end of the phase. If your unit invokes its contract, each time you make an attack that destroys an enemy model, roll 1d6. On a 5 up, you gain 1 lost wound to a maximum of 6 after all attacks have been resolved. So regaining wounds is always helpful, especially on this detachment, because you are going to be taking a lot of damage. Mauler Fiends will love this, as they are your premier, attack dogs, for lack of a better word. You just throw them forward and punch stuff. Run into melee, smash whatever you're fighting, and get some wounds back. Pretty good. However, there are big caveats to this. So it's in the fight phase, so you can't use it on shooting, which I think reduces the efficacy of the stratagem. So it would have been nice to get this on a shooting output, because obviously primary damage in this detachment does come from shooting. It doesn't work on tank shock as well, as you need to kill them with your attacks and not the mortal wounds. So most of our demon vehicles don't have that many attacks to begin with, so we'd be struggling to get some wounds back. So we'll use Mauler Fiends as an example. I do have some dice here, which I'm going to roll in real time. So we're going to assume that Mauler Fiend is, he's passed his contract. He's got 8 attacks, because obviously the Mauler Fiend fists are 8 attacks, so we're hitting on 3s because we're a Mauler Fiend. So we've got Dart Packs for sustained, so that means we've got 2 6s. We've missed twice, but obviously the sustains will compensate for that, so we've hit 8 times. And we are wounding, let's say, for argument's sake, his strength 14, so we'd be wounding on 3s or 2, so we'll say 3s. So we've got 2 fails, so those 2 attacks did come in clutch, which means we've wounded 6 times. Minus 2 AP, so we'll assume whatever you're fighting is just your regular power armored guy, so we're looking for 4s and 5s to save this. So we've got 1 6, so that's saved. We have 1 4, which I'm going to keep separate, and 4 of the actual damages have gone through. So that's d6 plus 1 damage each. So that's 4 damage, 3 damage, 2 damage, 5 damage. So we've killed pretty much between 3 and 4 models there. Potentially 5 if you're discounting the 4 up. Then that means we roll for the 4 dice that we've got here. So any 5 up, we get a wound back. And we got 1. Which, again, just to prove a point, you've gained 1 wound from 8 attacks. So obviously that could be worse. Again, obviously I haven't done this into Guardsman, so I will do it into Guardsman now. So let me just get my dice again. So we'll use the Morphine Fist, hitting on 3s. Sustained hits, none of them, but we do hit all of them. Wounding on 2s. Failed to wound 4 times. Wow, that's really bad. They don't get an armor save because of Guardsmen, so that's just going to be 4 dead Guardsmen looking for 5s. We got 1, so we've healed 1 wound. Lasher Tendrils, I believe, are 6 or 7 attacks. I think it's 6, maybe 5. We'll do 6, but let's see. Hitting on 3s, sorry. We've missed 4 times. Wow, that's typical dice luck. Wounding on 2s, because strength 7 against toughness 3, so we've wounded twice. AP -1, so 6 ups. 1 goes through, the other one gets saved, 5 up. Yeah, we got it. So we got 2 wounds off of a metric boatload of attacks. Again, it's there if you need it. Like if you're gonna worry about your actual Morphine staying alive, it's not really a situation where you're gonna need that, but it's there in case you do. But yeah, that was quite fun actually. I enjoyed that. Next up, Soulforged Warpack. Stratagem number 4 is the Predatory Pursuit. This one I ranked a 2 out of 10. It's very bad. And allow me to explain. Your opponent's movement phase just after an enemy unit ends a normal advance or fallback. 1 Heretic Astartes vehicle or Vashtor unit from your army that is within 9 inches of the enemy unit and not within engagement range of 1 or more enemy units can make a normal move of up to 6 inches, but must end that move as close as possible to that enemy unit. So this would be a lot better if it was just a reactive move instead of having to move closer to the enemy unit. So having access to a reactive move would have made this stratagem really good, allowing you to essentially move out of the charge range from a melee unit, which would try to tap at you, or would be able to kill your unit. So they'd either force themselves to take a 9-inch charge, or move closer to your unit, which would then mean you can just reactively move out of the way. Second is one scenario that I can think of would be helpful would be to move on to objectives. So for example, if your opponent sets up a unit within 9 inches of you that moves on to an objective, you can potentially use this to move onto the objective and contest it. But again, the problem is our demon vehicles have around 3 OC. I know Mauler Fiends and Forge Fiends do. So we'd be essentially jumping on the objective to do nothing, for lack of a better word. And obviously we'd be presenting the unit as a target for shooting, for lack of a better word. The only problem, and the only situation rather, I can find that it would be okay is if you needed to get engaged on all fronts and you needed that movement, but it stipulates you have to end it within 6 inches of the enemy unit. So if they fall back into their sector of the map, then you can just fall back into them 6 inches and you are now in their sector and you'll probably score the engaged on all fronts. It's a very incredibly niche situation to be in, but it's there, I guess. Alternatively, you can use this to move block, so demon vehicles do have very large bases. So if your opponent's falling back and you use this, you can then move into essentially a bottleneck and just cover that, which means that they're not able to get close to you. So for example, the only situation I can think this would be viable in is if, for example, you had Vashtor, you move him into a bottleneck where your opponent used to get some tanks through. You are then stood next to a predator that's 3 inches away from him, hiding behind a wall or something, where they have to get close to Vashtor in order to stop him and overextend as a result. But they can't shoot him because obviously he's within 3 inches of the vehicle, which means he gets lone operative. Again, that situation is incredibly rare. I don't think you would see yourself doing that a lot of the times. but it's there. I don't think this is a good stratagem, unfortunately. Another excellent stratagem, Demonic Possession. Command phase, one Heretic Astartes vehicle from your army has now got the demon keyword. So you'll be using this at least once or twice per game. So if you bring in Predators and Vindicators, you are definitely going to be using this. That +1 to wound on Predators and Vindicators is insane. You're wounding most things in the games on 2s. Again, obviously, just obscenely good, especially on Predators. I think it's the Annihilator with the last cannon, you get twin linked, so obviously you're wounding on 2s re-rolling. So you're pretty much guaranteed to wound at like 90 something percent of the time, and basically means more damage, more securing kills, which is exactly what you're going to be doing on this detachment anyway. It's only one command point, which is great. You won't need to be frugal with using command points, and you'll immediately start noticing the returns once your regular vehicles become demon vehicles. The only caveats that I have with it is that you are basically forced to use a command point every turn, which kind of sucks because we don't have command point regeneration unless we're using the the enhancement from earlier. Again, it can be a bit of a pain in the backside, really, and it's also once per turn. So you can't just spam and go, right, I've got 2 command points. I'm just going to use both of them in my second turn, and these guys have now got +1 to wound and +2 attacks in melee. But yeah, either way, I still think this is a fantastic stratagem. I think you are definitely going to be using this every single game. I used it every single game without fail, and the only reason why I haven't ranked it as a 10 out of 10 is because it doesn't necessarily, like I said, you are using this stratagem every single command phase to ensure your regular vehicles are getting the buff. The command points that you are going to pool up aren't going to be there as they normally would be. So in turn 1, for example, if in your command phase you can turn a demon vehicle, I don't know, Predator Annihilator, let's say, you turn it into a demon vehicle, you don't have any command points, so you can't do anything other than that. But the trade-off is obviously the earlier you do it, the more you get out of it. But the problem is you don't have command points for stuff that you might need in future. So, for example, smoke, tank shock is a big one. Anything like that, you might not have the command points for it, which is the only reason why it's not a 10 out of 10. Otherwise, this is a fantastic stratagem. And finally, we have Feeding Frenzy, which I've ranked out of 10. I've ranked it a 4. So, opponent's movement phase, when an enemy unit is selected to fall back, one Heretic Astartes demon vehicle or Vashtor the Arcathane unit from your army that is within engagement range of that unit. Until the end of the phase, each time an enemy unit, which excludes monsters and vehicles, that is within engagement range of your units, falls back, all models in that enemy unit must take a Desperate Escape test, and when doing so, if that enemy unit is battle shocked, subtract 1 from each of those tests. So it can be beaten by the big guns never tire rule. So most vehicles don't really give 2 hoots as to whether or not you're in combat. They can shoot inside and outside combat normally. Obviously, they can't shoot blast weapons at you in combat, which is nice, but they can shoot the blast weapons out of combat if they're not within engagement range of the unit, or unless stated otherwise. They'd just be hitting at a -1, so it's not really that impactful on a majority of things. It can help, like, don't get me wrong, -1 to hit is still -1 to hit. You're hitting on 4s on a majority of vehicles at that point, and if they're bracketed, it's going to be hitting on 5s, which can actually help a lot. The threat of the stratagem is more potent than the actual stratagem. So if your opponent has an infantry unit which won't be able to kill your demon vehicle in combat, or by shooting them in combat, they'll probably want to fall back, which means you can pop this. However, your opponent isn't going to want to take the risk most of the time, and the mere mention of taking a Desperate Escape test is enough to usually deter them from doing that. So the third point I've made is Vashtor can also use this if you need to. Again, it's situational. It's not outright bad. It's just there if you need it, essentially, and it can help. I haven't encountered a situation where it has helped, but the situation where this could occur and be helpful is very good, because that Desperate Escape test means if they fail any kind of Desperate Escape, that's 1 model gone. And depending on what you're in, if you're into like elite infantry, 1 or 2 elite infantry getting killed for 1 command point is pretty good. So we're starting on the standout units and combinations now. So the first one is the Forge Fiends, just an incredibly potent shooting unit, more so in this detachment, primarily because they're just the chassis that you use for shooting stuff. They don't need any command points to turn into a demon vehicle because they are one. But yeah, so disclaimer, both of the options below will have hazardous and dev wounds because you'll be using the ability the Forge Fiend has on his datasheet. So, option 1, you've got your 3 ectoplasma cannons, which is 3 times D3 shots, which all have blast at strength 10 minus 3, 3 damage flat. Option 2 is the 2 Hades auto cannons and the ectoplasma cannon. So that's 2 times 6 shots at strength 8 minus 1 AP, 2 damage flat, as well as 1 D3 shots with blast at strength 10 minus 3, 3 damage flat. You can honestly make an argument for bringing the auto cannons one instead of the ectoplasma one. Mainly, if you're bringing Forge Fiends, you're probably going to want to bring about 2 or 3. Usually, you want to bring one with the auto cannons, and the reason as to why is because you can just get the +1 to wound, so that strength 8 now wounds tanks on 4s, or most tanks on 4s, and it can kill quite a lot of infantry. So, for example, here I'm just going to do a bit more rolling. So, for those who want a live demonstration, you're going to get one. So that's 6. I think I've gone a bit overboard. Nope, I got it right. Never mind. So we'll roll for the shots. Let's say we're shooting at Space Marines in cover. So this is 12 shots hitting on 3s. So we have missed. We're going to be dark pacting as well for sustained hits because obviously we've got 1, 2 sustained, which is good. So we've missed once. So that's 11 hits, which is really good. So +1 to hit, +1 to wound, so we're wounding on 2s anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So we're not looking for any 1s. We don't get a single 1. Wow. So that's 11 wounds. In fact, let me re-roll that because I didn't count how many dev wounds I got. So we'll turn. So we've got 2 wounds here that have failed. 1 dev wound, so one of them's dead. So that's 1 Space Marine killed. And we do have. So this is going to be AP1, so AP0 because we're in cover, so 3 ups. That's 1, 2, 3. You've killed 4 Space Marines, which is good. But then obviously you've got the ectoplasma cannon, so that's D3 shots with blast, so that's 2. Hitting on 3s, exploding 6s. I got a 6 and a 1, so that's 2 shots. Wounding on 2s, both wound, and they're both dev wounds, so that's 2 more Space Marines dead. So again, obviously that's just a very niche circumstance. You're not going to hit dev wounds every single time. Oh, and hazardous test as well, because 2 different weapons. Yeah, we're fine. So we don't take any wounds. Yeah, that was pretty fun. So we've just killed 6 Space Marines from 1 shooting of a Forge Fiend in cover. So as I'm aware, a majority of the time, Space Marines are a bit of a pain to get rid of in cover. So this thing has just killed 6 of them in cover. Obviously, I roll pretty well. So I'm not going to I'm going to, say on average you will kill between 4 to 6 Space Marines. But yeah, that's just from 1 Forge Fiend, and then obviously that's a 6-man squad. So you probably, unless it's like, I don't know, Hell Blasters or something, a majority of the time Space Marines are being ran in MSU. So you've just got 5. So that would have wiped the squad, which is good. None of your units are going to get tar pitted, which is fantastic. Next up is the Chaos Vindicator, which is made into a demon vehicle. Again, like I mentioned earlier, with the demonic possession rule, just really good. Like one of the hardest hitting units in our codex from range. Getting access to +1 wound means you're wounding pretty much anything in the game on a 2 or a 3, which is wild. Obvious weaknesses include the Vindicator's short range. It's slower than most of the vehicles that are similar to it, but being able to make it hit even harder is very scary. You'll still be getting those D6 +3, strength 14, minus 3 AP D6 damage shots with blast and dart packs, which is fantastic. And last but not least on this slide is Chaos Predators made into a demon vehicle. So Predators are incredibly cheap for what you get. So you're reasonably tough, long range, very good for holding lines of sight. Predator Annihilators are a standout in my opinion here, seeing as you'll be wounding on 2s into big targets and get to roll the re-rolls to wound due to the twin linked on the twin, well, especially on the Predator las cannon, not on the regular sponsons. It's the big twin linked one. Predator Destructors are also a solid unit to bring in this detachment simply because of the weaponry. as well. So both variants do have access to 2 las cannons on the sponsons, which is wonderful anti-vehicle options to wound with +1 to wound. So again, wounding las cannons, most of the time you're wounding on 3s or 2s, and your auto cannons wounding on 4s into T10 or higher stuff, which is fantastic, and you're pretty much just shredding your infantry anyway. So the Destructor is obviously anti-infantry, the Annihilator is anti-vehicle. Next up, we have the Warpsmith with Tempting Addendum, which again, it's probably the most important unit in this army. It's very, very good. +1 to hit on your demon vehicle of your choice. So this can be on a Predator if you use the thing, the Demonic Possession, a Vindicator, hell, even a Forge Fiend. Usually going to be on a Forge Fiend though. But yeah, Tempting Addendum's vital here, so you're getting, let's just do another dice roll. So we're going to do the Ectoplasma Forge Fiend. So that's 3 shots, or 3d3 shots rather. So we've got a 1, so that's 1 shot, a 3 and a 6, so that's 3, and a 5, that's 3, so that's 7 shots overall. I'm sorry if you guys don't like this, but I am trying to keep it interactive, so please let me know if you do enjoy this or not. Hitting on 2s, because the Warpsmiths provided a +1 to hit. Rerolling any misses, so we've got a 6, which is an extra hit, so we've got all hits and just an extra hit. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 threes, wow. So 8 shots overall. Let's say we're shooting into a toughness 12 tank, so we're wounding on 4s. So that is 3 fail to wound. A dev wound, so that's 3 damage. AP minus 3, so that is a 5 up because we're on a Land Raider. So 2 go through, so that's 9 damage overall on a Land Raider. That's pretty good. And that's just from 1 shooting, which I think is fantastic. You're probably going to be bringing 3 of them. In addition as well, obviously you get the D3 wounds to heal, which is fantastic. That little bit of extra, let's see what we get actually. 2, so yeah, you'll be getting about 2 to 3 wounds on average healed. You might get the 1, but you know, it's better to heal 1 than none. If the Warpsmith is within 12 inches of an enemy vehicle, you can force it to take a battle shock test as well. Situational, but it's helpful if you do need it, so you know you can block stratagems from being used on it. The only weakness is what I mentioned earlier, which is obviously the range isn't that great because it's a 3-inch range on the enhancement, but you'll want to be stood next to your demon vehicles anyway. The Hellbrute has been mentioned, so Hellbrutes need a buff in general as they're not a very durable chassis compared to their loyalist counterparts, like your Redempted Dreadnoughts, for example. However, they do amplify the damage of your Dark Packs, so you can turn them into a demon vehicle if you want to do so for a command point. Again, this is more of a casual thing. I wouldn't bring this in a competitive list. It's more of a there if you want to use it. So this is the build that I would go for. So Hellbrute uses Depth to the Soulforged for extra attacks. So he's got 9 attacks overall with lethals and sustains. So he's going to use the hammer for this. So we are going to get our dice again. That's 4, 6, 8, 9. So we've got 9 dice here. So we'll use the hammer. So we're hitting on 4s, lethal and sustained on 6s. We have missed every single one, bar 2. God damn. I'll just say he's next to a Warpsmith with Tempting Addendum just for the content, because goddamn that was horrendous. Right, there we go, that's a bit better. Right, so we've got an extra hit as well. So overall we now have 7 hits. I don't think I've ever seen a roll that bad before, Jesus Christ, and on content as well. Strength 14, so you're wounding on 2s most of the time, or 3s. So we'll say 3s for argument's sake. We have wounded 5 times. So tanks usually have we'll say 5 up. So 2 go through, 3 go through, not 2. D6 plus 1 damage. That's 6, 10, 14. That's 14 damage. So that's probably going to kill a knight in one go, which is fantastic. It's nice to have. Again, the lethals, I didn't count the lethal on top of that as well, actually, so we'll roll for that. Yep, they failed, so that's d6 plus 1. Right, that's 6 damage. Yes, so I did 20 damage to a knight, because I forgot to include the lethal, and they failed the save. So yeah, wow, that's a lot of damage. Obviously, it's very swingy. It's weapon skill 4. It's more of a casual, like, funny pick, but it's there in case you need it. And obviously, most of the time, if you are bringing a Hellbrute, you're going to want to play him defensively and keep him next to your actual heavy hitters. So finally, we're on to Vashtor. Vashtor, in my opinion, is one of my favourite models, and not only from a design perspective, but viability-wise, this guy is fantastic. He doesn't benefit from much in the detachment because he doesn't have the vehicle keyword. However, he does benefit from the 3 stratagems I mentioned earlier, and his rules will support the rest of our army. So the big one is, I'll mention later, but basically the first one is Reorder Reality, which is if an enemy unit is within 18 inches, any ranged attacks to Vashtor are now -1 to hit, and their weapons have hazardous. So heavy hitting ranged weaponry like las cannons or something similar. So we'll do we'll do another. Oh no, it won't matter with that one. Never mind. This video has probably gone on for too long. But yeah, so las cannons will miss more often than not. You're hitting on 4s with them. Any kind of anti-vehicle stuff is usually low shots anyway, which is fantastic because one miss can potentially save a lot less damage for Vashtor. Vashtor also has Deep Strike, so you can rapid ingress him if you choose to. That means your Reorder Reality ability is going to go off a lot more reliably because you're most of the time within 18 inches. In addition, he also has Lone Operative when he's within 3 inches of a demon vehicle, which is fantastic given how big he is. He is also a prime target, but because obviously Lone Operative just is one of the best defensive tools in the game, in my opinion. But the big reason as to why you're bringing him is for this. So he gives Demon Engine weapons +2 strength. So that's not just ranged, that's melee as well, within 6 inches. It's an aura. So you have Strength 12 Ectoplasma with +1 to wound, Strength 10 Hades autocannons +1 to wound, Strength 16 Mauler Fist with 8 attacks, Strength 14 las cannons, Strength 16 las cannon on a Predator Annihilator. Wounding on 2s +1 to wound, so you're wounding on 2s, sorry. Strength 8 Venom Crawlers, which is fantastic. Like, that's the biggest boon, having this guy next to a couple of Venom Crawlers and just shredding things. And a lot more. That rule alone is fantastic. An honourable mention, Venom Crawlers. So 110 points for a skirmishing style unit, which gets stronger the more it kills. So while they're fairly easy to kill, I believe they're only toughness 9 and 8 wounds. They do present an annoyance for your opponent and are quite fast. If left unchecked, they're capable of doing some serious damage. I would probably bring 2 if you're able to, as 1 tends to not be enough. They're also very matchup dependent. So for example, like I said, so they're probably not the most competitive, but they're still very fun. So I think these guys are a casual game potentially. But if you want to bring them in competitive, I mean that's 12 shots from range. Strength 6, probably Strength 8 with next to Vashtor, +1 to wound, -1 AP, 2 flat damage. It's there if you need it. But while everything's been positive, I do have to mention the Defiler. It's dishonourable mention. Do not bring a Defiler. You can bring them in casual games, do what you want in a casual game. Competitively, they're a joke. They're too big. Horrible to move around because they don't have a base. So obviously the 4-inch rule of you can walk over terrain that's 4 inches or lower is fine, that's nice. And the stratagem allows you to move through terrain. They also do get the counter-offensive stratagem, I think, for free, which is a bit of a weird decision, to be honest with you. But you are spending command points on a unit to make them viable when you need to be using it elsewhere, e.g. demonic possession on your predators or your vindicator. So as much as I love the Defiler, I would only advise against bringing one in a serious competitive list. So to summarise, the strengths and weaknesses. So it's a demon-based detachment. Obviously our demon engines are pretty hard hitting anyway, so this just makes their strength even more potent. Having +1 to wound on Forge Fiends, Defilers, Vindicators and Predators ranged attacks is obscenely good into literally anything. So we do have very high damage, as I mentioned, but it's at a cost. So the +1 to wound from range is self-explanatory, but having the +2 attacks in melee allows most of our melee-specific demon vehicles to increase their potential damage output by a third. The math is obviously 6 attacks plus 2, a third of 6 is 2, 2 added on is 8, so it's a third of the damage added on. Very simple to play, but has some shenanigans. Obviously, the movement shenanigan. Core philosophy behind this attachment is to table your opponent. Very unga bunga. Move model, shoot and punch stuff until it stops moving, and try to score some objectives or secondaries in the meantime. So you can shore up some of the weaknesses that this detachment presents by bringing other CSM units. So you'll probably be bringing a couple of infantry data sheets like cultists or legionaries if you want to, primarily for objective control and secondaries. It's also good to have those scoring options available while the rest of your demons can focus on just killing stuff, while these guys are just talking the points up in the back and just racking them up, which is fine. Another stipulation for strength, which is what I like, because it's not boring, you have to play aggressively. So if you prefer defensively, like playing, that's fine. Do not run this detachment. You need to be exceptionally aggressive. So this is for people who want to get in there, turn 1, turn 2, and just do a boatload of damage. So World Eaters players are going to love this. Any kind of like hard hitting damage phase you like armies are going to love this detachment. But the problem is you have to get in there first and hit them extremely hard. Otherwise, you're allowing your opponent to dictate the terms of engagement, which is not something you want to be doing, especially the longer the battle goes on, the worse it'll get for you. The weaknesses. So only benefits demon engines, so I would say it's a bad thing, but it's not. It's not necessarily a good thing either. Infantry are usually the main thing as to why you're picking Chaos Space Marines, but again, they're still good on their own, which is fantastic. That's all we can ask for. Struggles with horde armies or any kind of units or army rather that has strong objective control. So you'll undoubtedly kill a lot of things with this detachment. However, if your opponent knows how to control the board with screening and cannon fodder units to prevent you from scoring, then you're going to have a bad time. So on the bright side, they are great into knights and similar armies. So like greater demons, for example, tyrannid monsters, any kind of like big scary unit your opponent wants to get into combat with. These guys are fantastic into them. Lack of defensive options, other than the 6-up feel no pain, and you'll be taking a lot of mortal wounds throughout the game, which can be costly. So the fact that you're more likely to fail your leadership tests for your debt to the Soulforged isn't great, although sometimes you don't even need to use the detachment roll, which is both a blessing and a curse. Obviously, you've got access to Warpsmiths for the +1 to hit and the healing, but you'll inevitably roll poor on some of the healing, and sometimes you will take far too much damage on top of what you're already getting from your opponent. So when you're bracketed, the risk of you failing those clutch dart packs and potentially killing your unit is a genuine consideration that you need to be aware of. You'll also need to keep an eye out for units which ignore lone operative to protect your Warpsmiths, as they are enhancement holders. So a list example here. So this is a very quick one. Again, this is a very hot, like ragtag put together list that I did in about 5 minutes. So for characters, we've got Cypher, Vashtor, Warpsmith with a tempting addendum, and an additional Warpsmith with no enhancements. Battle line, we've got 2 units of 10 cultists. These are our objective holders for obvious reasons. One data sheet that I thought would be very, very good to add would be a unit of Chaos Bikers with melter guns and a power fist. I just think they're really cool, but on top of that, they can help you skirmish with units. They're very good at getting into certain areas of the board if you need to score them. They can do actions. They can take off objectives quite quickly because of the speed. They're just really, really nice to have, and they're quite cheap. They're only 70 points. We do have 2 Predator Destructors, which are the anti-infantry tanks. Again, this is primarily just to get rid of any chaff in the way. They do have the Havoc launchers and the auto cannons, but they also can hit infantry vehicles with the +1 to wound with a last cannon. So it's not much. It's only 2 last cannon shots, but 2 last cannon shots is better than none. And we do have 1 Predator Annihilator. This is going to be the big anti-big thing, despite being toughness 10 and being quite easy to kill. Other data sheets, obviously we've got the Vindicator. It's self-explanatory. Forge Fiends, we've got 3. So we've got 1 with the Hades autocannon and 2 fully decked out with the ectoplasma cannons for obvious reasons. And we've just got 2 Mauler Fiends with magma cutters. You could switch this up and you could give them the Lasher Tendrils, but from the top of my head, I do believe the Lasher Tendrils are extra attack, so you won't get the benefit from the detachment. So the reason behind this list that I was thinking was threat saturation. So Cypher's here because he's a great lone operative and he helps pretty much any army in Chaos Space Marines. Can help you secure primary, score secondaries, and his aura to increase stratagem cost by your opponent by 1 command point is really useful if you're able to get that off. If you want to take him out though of the list, you can do. I just enjoy running him personally because I think he's very competitive and I didn't rate him high enough on my tier list a couple of months ago. Vashtor is the warlord in this circumstance as he's being brought for his supporting abilities. Like I mentioned earlier, he's just a supremely good unit which you'll more than likely need to bring in every list simply due how well he synergizes with the rest of the army. Warpsmith with a tempting addendum, again auto include, reroll hits equals more damage, complements hyper aggressive playstyle, cultist for the backline. That's it. You just move this guy forward with the rest of you guys and you shoot the hell out of pretty much anything that comes near you. Bikers again, maneuverability, ovular base or oval bases rather, that can block the can move block potentially, like I've done that previously with bikers, skirmishing utility players pretty much. So the 3 predators, you can switch either of them out. In all honesty, like if you want 3 destructors, you can probably bring one, get rid of a couple of things. They're just really, really good. Like predators in this detachment are just a different level. Like compared to literally every other predators in other detachments are okay. Predators in this detachment are stars. They are really good. So again, the Forge Fiends I'm not really going to explain, but you could probably switch this list up. Like I've said, if you don't want to take a Forge Fiend with the auto cannons, you can just switch that out and potentially bring, I don't know, another Mauler Fiend. If you don't want the Bikers or Cypher in, let's say, even the Warpsmith. So, like for example, you could take out the Warpsmith and take out a Cultist mob. That's 120 points right there. You can then add, I don't know, take the Bikers out. You've got yourself another another Mauler Fiend, another Vindicator potentially. Um, yeah, and then obviously you have some points left over for enhancements. You can take Cypher out. So in this circumstance, if you were to take 2 units out, the big 3 that come to my mind is Cypher and a Warpsmith. So the reason as to why I would say take out Cypher and the Warpsmith that doesn't have the enhancement, that's 160 points. That's an additional Predator there, so another Annihilator, so you can have 2 of them at the back just shooting anything with the Twin Link Las Cannons. Again, you can just take out Cultists, so that's 160 points, 210. If my memory serves me correctly, you should have enough for a Warpsmith at that point, so you could take out Cultist and just pretty much play it around. Like if you want to take out the Bikers for another Warpsmith, if you want to take out the Warpsmith for another unit of Bikers, you can switch that up. If you want to bring Legionaries, anything like that, Raptors could be potentially pretty good for the utility. I know Raptors are, a very useful unit to have. Again, it's up to you. Like I said, this is mainly just because it was 2,000 points on the nose, though. Overall, where would I rank it? I'd give this a 7.5 out of 10. So the Soulforged Warpack is a very simple detachment to understand. So your entire aim is to hit your opponent so hard that they're either too crippled to fight back, or preferably table them. This is a great matchup into knights, which are always prevalent in the meta, and it's good into any kind of monster. The problem is the issues, like I mentioned. You can counter this, but lack of objective play. Other armies with a good player in command can primarily just destroy you, and secondary wise, you're just not going to get anything. So there are options, but it's going to be an uphill struggle. So in addition to this, you're also going to be taking a lot of damage from Dark Packs and Debt to the Soulforge. So you'll need to keep this in mind as long as the game goes on. Longer the game goes on for, the less likely you are to keep alive in the battle, for lack of a better word. Attritional damage will increase. Overall, this detachment is very feast or famine. You'll either win big or you'll lose on points. I do think this detachment can be competitive, though. It just needs a bit more refinement to it. I think it's just missing something. So it'll be interesting to see what the balanced data slate updates have in store for it. So any point reductions potentially for any rule changes, we'd be looking forward to that. But yeah, that's the entire video. Thank you for watching and thank you for listening for those who stayed for this long. If you have done, I appreciate that. If the video you feel warranted your support, then please feel free to subscribe. if you feel like my videos are up to your standards. Liking and sharing the video also helps too, because I want to make more of them when I've got the time to do so. But irregardless, wherever you are, it was nice speaking with you all, and no matter where you are, always remember to praise the dark gods. Thank you, guys.